Hello and welcome to a new Q&A here on the channel. It's been a while and I asked you on Instagram to give me some questions that I could answer, and you guys have been so kind to give me quite a few. Some of the questions are perhaps a repetition for some of the viewers here because I've kind of answered them over the years, but we are also a growing community and I don't really expect you guys to have been watching my Q&As from maybe 2 years ago. So for some viewers here there might be a little bit repetition, but I think we have a good mix of some questions that we have answered in the past and some new questions that we've never talked about. So with no further ado, let's dive into your questions and hopefully I will be able to answer them to your satisfaction. I will at least try my very best. And the first question we get is, when did you start loving aviation? And I don't have a start date as such, but obviously already as a child I was fascinated by aircraft. I think like most children love everything that drives around, but planes in particular because my dad and in general we as a family were traveling quite a bit, so that was always part of kind of the family life. So I think that's where it comes from. What is planned after Cardiff? I've had quite a few questions regarding that, given that we are coming to the very end of my series Cardiff. And of course I have already talked a little bit about it in the past, but I have been keeping most information to myself so far because I am still in the developing process for the next big project. What I can say is that there is definitely something coming after Cardiff, which is planned for next year. But when next year, I don't really know yet. Normally this takes some time and for me always a bit more time than I would like to, but that's just how it is. What I can say so far is that it will be placed in present time, at least for the majority of the series or whatever it will turn out to be, because I'm still working out the details here. But I have some ideas about integrating scenarios from the past as well. But this is still very much in the developing process. It will also be planned in Northern Europe, most likely in Denmark, because I have a fairly large collection and I would like to use some of the many aircraft that I have in my fleet that I haven't really been able to use in, for example, Cardiff or at Philadelphia, because that's in North America. I have quite a few narrow bodies for Europe and I would like to use them. And it very much depends on how my new airport setup will end up looking, which is also not quite determined yet. I have some ideas, I need to make some tests, and then I need to see how I can build it, or if I will have someone build it for me. So there are many open questions there, and I have until recently still been working on Cardiff actually, so there hasn't really been much time to focus on this new project. But as soon as I have more information, I will slowly drop it. Maybe not everything at once, because obviously I do also like to have a little bit of a build-up, maybe create a trailer or something like that. Yeah, this is basically where we are at the moment. So present time, mainly Northern Europe, most likely Denmark. I have a location in mind, but I'm just not quite sure if it's the right location, if you guys will like it or not. And before I start talking about the location I have in mind, I want to work on it a little bit more. And as soon as I'm comfortable sharing more information about it, I will of course do so. So I hope that you will remain patient, but there is definitely something planned for next year. Do you think Herpa should do blank models that people can customize? So albino models, models without delivery. And absolutely. Unfortunately, Herpa has actually talked about that in the past, and there they really sounded like this would be impossible. Honestly speaking, I don't believe them. But what Herpa said at the time was that blank models would not be possible due to licensing. According to Herpa, they are only allowed to, for example, make an Airbus A320 with the license of an airline. Now that makes no sense because they are also making fantasy models. Let's just remember, for example, the A320 of Shannon Airport. You can't tell me that Airbus would not allow Herpa to make that model if it doesn't have a licensed livery from an airline. I think it's just an excuse because Herpa doesn't want to make these blank or albino models. Maybe they are afraid of basically people turning models into aircraft of airlines which they don't have the license to, and then they're afraid that these airlines might sue them. But the reality is people are already turning models into airlines for which Herpa does not have the license. And I have not heard of any stories that Herpa is being sued because of that. It also makes no sense because Herpa has nothing to do with that. So honestly speaking, I think it's just an excuse for not doing it. But of course I can't prove it. And so I can only say what Herpa is saying, and Herpa is saying we cannot do it. But I think they should. Then we have a question here, your favorite model and your opinion about Sky 500. So my favorite model is always a difficult thing because there are far too many really lovely models, so it's difficult to pick. And I think in every Q&A I do end up saying a different model. I of course like all my Jumbolino models, so like the little Avro 85, I believe it is, from in the full Lufthansa livery, or actually the Titan is also really nice. But for example, one of the best models I have is the JC Wings 7879 in the ANA standard livery, which is an amazing aircraft model. But yeah, so that really too many to be mentioned here. But my opinion about Sky 500, well, I don't think they exist anymore, to be honest. I don't think they survived Corona. I'm not entirely sure, but we haven't really seen anything since the pandemic started from Sky 500. I hope that they still exist, and if they do so, I hope that they will soon start producing models again, because overall I think their models are pretty good. They used to be more detailed than Herpa's. Now Herpa has of course added a few details over the last few years. So I think now they're pretty much on the same level. Sky 500 used to have maybe a little bit issues with the Airbus A330s placing some of the elements a little bit too high on the mold. But overall I think Sky 500 is making, or has been making, really lovely aircraft models. And I mean, I'm always happy if anyone cares to make Sky 500 models. But I don't think we will see many more models from Sky 500, if at all. But it would be lovely if they could come back. Then we have a question here. Are you going to buy the Lot 787 when it comes out? So Herpa has of course announced a model of a 7879 in the Lot standard livery. Honestly speaking, I think that is a model that I will probably not buy, simply because there are some other models that are more interesting for me. And given Herpa's absolutely bonkers prices for their models, I have to choose. I can't just get everything, and so this will probably be a model that I would have bought in the past, where models were priced more reasonably. But with the prices now, you have to think twice before buying any model, and that would be a candidate that I probably will be skipping, unfortunately. Have you got any plans for spotting in Poland? Maybe a GDN or WAW, so Warsaw? I haven't really got any immediate plans for spotting in Poland. It could be nice to try it out, but I have no experience. I've been at some of the airports in Poland, at Warsaw I have been traveling from, and to, and I have been Krakow. Krakow didn't seem to be the most open airport in a sense, or the most accessible airport for spotting. But I might be wrong. And Warsaw I have never tried for spotting. If you have any experience, feel free to share it with me. If there are some good spots, I would like to hear about it. Okay, we have a slightly off-topic question. What is this motorcycle racing called that you like to attend? So maybe some of you have seen in my Instagram stories once in a while that I go to some, or been going to some racing. It's basically motorcycles just going around in a circle, but it sounds very simplistic, but it is very entertaining. And the answer to the question is, it's called... No, I remember. The answer to the question is very simple. It's called Speedway. It's quite popular here in Denmark, I think also in Poland and in the UK, a little bit also in the US. It's not the most common racing series, but there are some countries where they do it quite a bit, and it is quite entertaining. So if you have a club or race circuit near you, you should go there and check it out. Will the Bongo Air fleet expand? Well, yes and no. So far I have shown my Bongo Air cargo aircraft in my series Cardiff. What perhaps maybe a few people will remember is that I have actually already kind of shown some more Bongo aircraft, I believe in a Q&A where I placed them in the image, but I didn't really talk about them. So in that sense, the Bongo Air cargo or Bongo Air fleet is already complete, and it is bigger than what I have shown in my videos so far. And perhaps they might play a role in a new series, but I don't think I can say much more at the moment. If you could have an airport setup of any airport, what would you pick and why? That's a good question. I mean, there are many quite interesting airports. I think one airport that kind of interests me and that I wouldn't mind trying out one day, but is just difficult because of the size, is actually Abu Dhabi. I don't know why, but for some reason the airline that I have the most aircraft of, at least from the Gulf carriers, is Etihad. So if I was ever to do a Middle Eastern based airport, it would probably be an airport where Etihad Airways is operating from, and so far their base of operations is at Abu Dhabi. Next question, worst and best airport you have been to? That's very easy. Let's start with the best airport, that is Munich Airport. That is an excellent airport to travel from and to, also an airport for connecting flights. Things just work. So Munich Airport, definitely the best airport I've been traveling from, and the worst, honestly speaking, I must say Frankfurt. Frankfurt is just terrible. It's a terrible airport. Everything about this airport is just terrible. They used to be bad in the past, and they kind of improved a little bit, and now they're just terrible again. So yeah, best to be avoided. Which type of aircraft is your favorite? Well, some of you viewers might know it. That's of course the Jumbolino, a fantastic little aircraft. I mean, tiny little aircraft with 4 engines, what's not to like? Do you think JC Wings will produce more models to compete against Herpa? So they did tease that they were working on something for Scale 500, but that's already quite a few months back, and we haven't really seen or heard anything since. I'm sure there will be coming something at some point, but it will never be enough to really compete with Herpa. I mean, there's no doubt when JC Wings does make Scale 500 models, they blow away anything that Herpa has to offer. So I don't really think they're competing. I mean, JC Wings is far superior to anything that Herpa is making in Scale 500, but they are of course making way too few models. I would love to see JC Wings make many, many more. And I'm sure there will be coming something, but we just don't know when. Do you have any Scale 400 models? I have one. I've actually recently, it's the first time I've shown it, I've recently shown it in one of my review videos of A4 Airport products. So if you haven't checked out that video, that's also quite nice, where I show some of the new A4 real airport series setups. There I actually feature my one and only Scale 400 model, which is a 737-600 of Scandinavian Airlines. What was your favorite trip in 2022? So 2022 has actually been quite different from me traveling wise. I mean, it's been the first year where we really could travel the whole year again. And it has been very different for me in the sense that every trip I've done this year has actually been something new for me. It's either been with an airline that I haven't traveled with before, an aircraft type that I haven't traveled with before, or an airport that I haven't traveled to or from before. So that's been, yeah. I used to have a lot of trips, but many of them were kind of routine. This has been just new experiences all year long. So all of them have been quite exciting. I think a special trip for me was when I was on the inaugural flight of Scandinavian Airlines from Copenhagen to Toronto on their brand new A321 LR, which was quite special. One, because I was invited to try out the business class on the way over from Copenhagen to Toronto. And then on the way back, the aircraft flew from Toronto to Stockholm, where I got to try out the new premium economy. But I was in Toronto for 2 hours. So I have had many short trips over the years, but I've never traveled intercontinental for only 2 hours. So I was traveling from Copenhagen to Toronto with the aircraft and flying back with the same aircraft immediately, which was quite the experience, but fun. I really loved my trip with Loganair this year from my home airport, Esbjerg Airport, to Aberdeen. It's been a route that has been operated for many years, originally back in the day from BMI Regional, and then when they closed down, Loganair started up the route. And I have been traveling from my home airport, Esbjerg Airport, back in the 90s, and since then the airport has gone quite downhill when it comes to routes, so I haven't really been traveling from there. So this year I managed to finally travel from the airport once again, and that was very much a trip down memory lane, and in the same time trying out something new, a new airline. I was flying the Embraer 145, and I was finally traveling to Aberdeen. So there were many really cool things about this trip that I enjoyed very much. So I think these two trips are standing out quite a bit. But actually in just a few days from the release of this video, I will be traveling from Esbjerg Airport again, which I'm very excited about because Eastern Airways is opening a new route to Esbjerg Airport, and I will also be on the inaugural flight there and try out that service. So that could maybe end up being my favorite trip of 2022. But so far I would say Toronto and the Aberdeen trip. Will you ever do an Asian-inspired airport? Not likely, because I don't have the fleet for it. I would have to build up a completely new fleet to be able to do so, and yeah, so unlikely. Would you sell any of your models? Yes. It's not like I haven't done so, it's just not very often. The thing is, I live in Denmark and shipping costs out of Denmark are normally quite expensive. So like if you just want to buy a single model, that doesn't really make sense. So yeah, I mean, it's not like I don't want to sell any models. It's just not something I'm actively doing, but you can always make me an offer. Will there be a fan meeting if you reach 10K followers next year? 10K follow. I mean, okay, I think this is definitely on Instagram and not on YouTube. That would be quite the achievement if I managed to do so. I don't think we need to have a specific follower number for a fan meeting. I mean, honestly speaking, I still don't really think that anyone would be interested, but I mean, I can try to announce if I go somewhere for spotting. I mean, I'm really terrible in doing stuff. I think others are more, there are people that are really good in like saying, oh, I will be there for spotting this day. Anyone around, let's meet up. And I'm really bad at that for some reason, but I can try. I mean, I have some spotting trips in mind for next year. So I think when we get closer to that, I could try to say just, hey, I will be around if anyone wants to meet up. And then no one will show up, I guess. It could be nice to meet a few more of not just followers, just fellow spotters. That's always nice. What airline has the biggest fleet in your collection? I think that must be Lufthansa. I have not really counted it, but given that I have a rather large fleet of Lufthansa with their 1990s colors, and I don't have every model in the new colors, but I have almost every model in the new colors. The fleet is clearly, it must be the biggest. So Lufthansa. How to get updates of new Herpa wings, like how to know their new launches of models and stuff. I mean, if you want to have information about Herpa wings, I can only recommend you to check out my YouTube channel, Bongo Planes, and my Instagram channel, Bongo Planes, where I try to curate all the information that comes in and package it very nicely. But I mean, if you want to know, for example, where you can find the information from Herpa, you can visit their website. It's not very good, but you can visit the website. And if you go into the website under, for some reason it's still only in German, but there's the category Neuheiten Prospekte. And if you click there, you will actually get the little information leaflets with the latest announcements and the prices of the new models. So that's a good place to go as well. And then check out my channel. Do you have your collection cataloged? Oh, I should have it, but I don't. I used to have it way back in the day. I kind of had it somewhat cataloged, and then I kind of stopped doing that. And I really should do so, because it's sometimes difficult to figure out if I already have a model or not, which has led to the situation that I have accidentally bought models twice because I thought I didn't have the model. But even worse, it has also led to the situation where I didn't buy a model that I really wanted because I thought I already had it, and then it turned out I didn't, and then I lost out on my chance of getting it. So I really should, and I can only recommend you, even if you're just starting off and you have 5 models, catalog it. You can never start too early with it. It will help you down the line. I really should do it. But with my current collection, that's a bigger project. So yeah, one day. Can you do an airport update of Cardiff, but in modern time like 2022? Theoretically, I could, but it's not likely to happen anytime soon. I mean, so the thing you need to realize is that I have been working on Cardiff for quite some time. The show has 4 seasons. So I've been working on this for 4 to 5 years, because I've obviously been working on it quite a bit in advance before the first season even started. Obviously, that doesn't mean that I every single day have been working on building a setup and filming, but there is a lot of preparation time on before I even start filming, developing stories, finding models that work with that, and so on and so on. And as much as I really do enjoy and like the series, I am also very happy that we are coming to an end, and that I will have time to work on something else. So I'm not gonna jump in right away with building a new Cardiff setup as the first thing. So I hope you can forgive me for that, but I also just, for my own mental health and motivation and happiness, just want to do something different once the season has finished, the series has finished. Maybe one day I will bring it back and just make a few episodes in present day, but it's not the highest on my list of things to do. Please, can you show your EasyJets? Yes, I can. But honestly speaking, I think that could be a nice idea for a My Collection video. I want to start up my My Collection videos again. It's been quite a while. I think quite a few of my viewers don't even know this series, but My Collection is a series where I take one airline, so all the models I have of one airline, I put in one video and show these models, talk a little bit about the airline. But I haven't had time over the year to actually do new episodes, and I want to start that up again for probably January. And I think I have enough models of EasyJet models. I mean, they're all custom, obviously, but I don't think that matters. So I think that could be a nice episode for My Collection, so keep an eye out for that. So the next, not really a question, maybe a little bit more of a demand. Still want to see that LATAM. I believe that refers to someone who a while ago asked me if I could do a review of a larger model of a 7879 that I have a model of, and I said I would put it on my list, and it is on my list. So what you have to know is that my priority is always to review new models first. And the reason for that is because I try to review these new Herpa models as fast as possible, so that those people who are interested in buying these models can get to see the model beforehand, before they buy the model, so they can make up their mind whether it is worth their money and time. So reviewing the new Herpa models takes up a lot of my time, but whenever I have some spare time, I do take out some of these models from my collection which I have never got around to review. And this is where then requests come in. Of course, if there is a request for a model, I will try to facilitate it if I have the model. But it can take a lot of time. You can be lucky and it just fits into a slot where I have time and I can review it straight away, but normally it will probably take quite some time before I get around to it. I have not forgotten about your request, as I say. I have put it on my list, but it is just taking some time. So probably, well, it will definitely not be this year. So next year, hopefully I will get around to it, and then one day it will be on my channel. Do you think Herpa is going to lose a lot of 1 to 500 collectors given their outrageous prices? Yes and no. I think those who are staying in Scale 500, I mean, we have no choice. There are no other manufacturers that are producing many of the models we would like to have. So if you want to have a new model, there is only Herpa. But what I can see is in the community, I mean, this year has been brutal, to be honest. I mean, the amount of comments and messages I have received from collectors that are saying, I'm stopping to collect altogether, or I'm switching scale because I don't want to buy these Herpa models anymore. The quality is too poor and the prices are insane. The amount of messages like that I have received this year, I have never had that many. And I think it says a lot. What is good is that recently we have seen, at least on Instagram, quite a few new accounts again starting to collect Scale 500 and making airport setups, which is nice because it means the community is not dying, but it is tough. It is really tough. And I mean, for sure, Herpa has driven away many customers with these prices, because if you're starting off now, if you don't have a huge collection, I mean, they make it very easy for people to either just stop the hobby altogether or switch to Scale 400, because the price difference is melting away. And even worse, of course, the value, the money you spend for a model is just not reflected in the product value anymore. I mean, those times are gone a long time ago. So yes, I don't think Herpa is doing themselves any favors with this price gouging that they're doing, and it is nothing else than price gouging. There are arguments here and there for why prices are rising, yes, but not in the amount we've seen. There is just no way you can explain that away other than price gouging. They're just collecting in, they're taking the opportunity, oh, there's some, you know, there's some inflation. Oh, that's a good excuse. Let's just add a few percentages here and there. And it's unfortunate. It is really unfortunate. I don't think they're doing themselves any favors with it. But what can you do? Other than stopping collecting or switching scale. And I think we are still quite a few that just really like Scale 500. It's not about liking Herpa, it's about liking the scale. Yeah. It's let's move on before we get too sad. How did you choose your name Bongo Planes? Fairly simple. Planes, I mean, we are talking about planes. And Bongo because that's my nickname. It's been my nickname from before I was born. So yeah. Will there be new episodes of Herpa We Need to Talk? Yes. I'm sure there will be. I have nothing immediately planned. I have one script that I worked on quite a few months back. but never got around to a film because I just ran out of time. And I think before I start producing that video, I want to have more scripts so I can produce a bunch of videos. I'm sure I will have the need to talk about Herpa in the future again. And once they have done enough outrageous things, we will see new Herpa We Need to Talk episodes. Can you try to interview the Herpa-Wings manager for a video? Yes. In fact, this is actually a video project that I have had in mind for a very long time, because I wouldn't just want to interview him on, I could do it on Zoom or Skype or whatever it's called. But I have for a very long time had the idea to maybe go to Dietenhofen and try to work something out with Herpa, to talk with them. But this is a bigger project, which is why I haven't done it yet, because there's a lot of logistics and also some costs and stuff like that. But I would very much like to talk with them. But I do think that it is important to get both sides of the story, because of course we have our opinions and we think it's outrageous that they do this, or we think it's, why don't they do that? And we might still think that after we talked with them, but of course, you know, there are always two sides to a story. So yes, I do want to talk with them, and hopefully I can realize that at some point, but it has to be in the right setup, and this is why it hasn't happened so far. And of course they need to be interested. I don't know if they're interested because I haven't asked them yet. But in the future. Do you think Herpa will make the C919 model? The C919, I think it's the new Chinese aircraft. I mean, honestly speaking, yes and no. I think what really will matter, I mean, I think at the moment it's still not flying, so at least not commercially. And I think it will still take quite a few years before it will. I think ultimately for Herpa, this is the strange thing about Herpa. Herpa is a company that lives of making aircraft models, and in the same time, it always seems like Herpa is extremely hesitant to make any aircraft molds, which is the basis for any model. So the initial answer would be no, because they would have to create a new mold and they don't want to do that. I think what needs to happen for Herpa to make a C919 model is probably that it needs to sell rather well, I mean the real aircraft, which means it probably needs to sell more than just inside China. If we see more international airlines from outside China buy this aircraft type and use it, then I think the chances of Herpa making a mold and starting making models will increase. Just because that means there's a bigger customer basis when Herpa makes a model. But it's too far in the future. And if not, then I'm sure there are some very talented 3D printing people that will make a mold for all collectors who would like to have models of this aircraft type. Sorry, how many models do you have? This is always tough because I've kind of lost track again. But at least 850 aircraft models. I might be around 860, but for sure 850. Can you show me your SmartWings Boeing 737-800 in scale 500, please? I'm from the Czech Republic. Well, hi. Well, I mean, yes, I can show you the model because I've reviewed it. It's quite some years ago actually now, but I have reviewed it and the video is on my channel. So just for you, I will let it pop up in the top right corner, wherever the top right corner is. And you can check it out. All right, I think that were all the questions. I hope I've managed to answer them to your satisfaction. Thank you very much for all these brilliant questions. A little bit repetition, some new stuff there. I think a good mixture for a Q&A in Christmas 2022. But that's, I think, pretty much all I can say for now. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if so, then feel free to leave a like. And of course, if you are new around here, you're always welcome to hit subscribe. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.